Hey everyone, welcome to Ex-Fundie Diaries. My name is Elly, my pronouns are they, she, and this video is a part 2 to a video I made in November called How I Knew I Was Non-Binary plus Genderqueer. And no, you weren't imagining things. I have recently changed the order of my pronouns. I am now putting they, them first and she, her second because I prefer they, them. I'm okay with she, her, but I prefer they, them. And switching the order will hopefully make that more apparent going forward. And I definitely want to say thank you to the commenters who encouraged me to do that. It was definitely the right decision for me, and I appreciate your support. I have lots of topics that I want to talk about on this channel and lots of ideas for future videos, but lately I've been feeling like I can't really make those until I make this video. That first video that I made about my gender identity just doesn't feel complete on its own. I personally find this conversation about gender identity to be very complex and complicated. I know other people may not feel that way, and that's totally valid. For me, it does feel complex and complicated. And so in this video, I'm going to do my best to explain where I'm at with all of these different aspects and what I have come to believe. As always, feel free to share your thoughts and your perspective down below. And also, I could change my mind on some of these things going forward. We'll see how things progress, but this is just a snapshot of where I'm at right now. So the very first thing that I want to address is actually my sexuality. When I changed my pronouns from she, her to she, they last summer, I got a few comments saying, why do you still identify as bisexual? Shouldn't you identify as pansexual? If someone wants to call me pansexual, I'm not offended. I think that that is technically accurate. But personally, I still feel deeply connected to the term bisexual, and I don't really see that changing anytime soon. For me, my definition of bisexual has actually included more than just men and women for quite a while, long before I ever started questioning my own gender. And I could give a few examples of this. In 2019, I came out to a couple of friends by doing a cover of Dodie Clark's song, I'm Bisexual. And in that song, some of the lyrics say, I have a heart that can love plural genders. And for me, that definitely included people under the non-binary umbrella. And then in 2020, my first purity culture video, which was, I think, the third video that I ever made on this channel, I came out as bi, and I said that what that means to me is that I'm attracted to my own gender and other genders. I haven't mentioned this on this channel yet, but I'm not straight. I identify as bisexual, and for me that means that I'm attracted to my own gender and other genders. And again, this was long before I had considered that I might not be a cisgender woman. So, at the time I meant I'm attracted to women and I'm attracted to other genders as well. Men, non-binary people, the whole spectrum. I have one more thing to share about this. I want to read a couple of quick paragraphs from the Bisexual Resource Center, which is a great website. Highly recommend it. I'll put a link down below. So it says, the BRC uses bisexual and bi+ as umbrella terms for people who recognize and honor their potential for sexual and emotional attraction to more than one gender. And then they give some other examples: bisexual, pansexual, omnisexual, fluid, queer, asexual, and other free identifiers. It's a common misconception that people who identify as bisexual are only interested in the binary genders of male and female. While it's true that this may have been the origin of the word, we prefer the broader and simpler definition of attracted to more than one gender. And that is the definition that I prefer as well. So other bi people may have other definitions, but for me, I just look at it as an umbrella term for people who are attracted to more than one gender. Another one that I've heard that I really like is genders like your own and genders not like your own. The next thing that I want to address is the difference between gender identity and gender expression. There is a common misconception that gender identity and gender expression are the same thing. But identity is just that. It's your identity. It's who you know yourself to be in regards to gender. And it's going to be very personal and very different for each person. Gender expression has to do with the way that you present yourself on the outside. So your clothes and your hair and your makeup or the lack thereof. And actually, again, this can be very personal and very different for each person. There's another common misconception that non-binary people are all androgynous or present in an androgynous way. Androgynous meaning, not clearly masculine or feminine. And that is, as I said, a misconception. It's definitely not true. There are plenty of non-binary people that are either very masculine presenting or very feminine presenting. The bottom line is that people of all different genders can present in all different ways, and it's all completely valid. So for example, you could have a man who is cis or trans who likes to wear dresses and keep his hair long and wear makeup. And he's still a man no matter what. The same could be true for a woman. Whether she is cis or trans, she could prefer to keep her hair short and wear very masculine clothes. And again, she's still a woman no matter what. For me, gender expression has changed over time, and it's something that I think confuses me sometimes and I'm still trying to figure out and work through. But I can definitely say that as a child, which I talked a lot about in the first video, my gender expression was pretty masculine. I only wanted to wear boy clothes, and I hated wearing dresses, and skirts were a compromise. And I think that if I had been allowed to present in the way that I wanted to, it's very possible that that could be my gender presentation now. Maybe not. It's honestly very hard to say because that's totally not what happened. Actually, when I got into my teen years, especially my late teen years, I became very, very feminine presenting. Gender became a performance for me in many ways, not just expression. And it was also part of me seeking male validation, which I would argue, and I feel very strongly about this, Christian patriarchy and Christian fundamentalism in general is set up to do that. And of course, society does that in general, so I don't want to discount that at all. But there's definitely, in my experience, a very deep and added layer when it comes to Christian fundamentalism and Christian patriarchy. Your worth is literally wrapped up in the way that men see you and in basically what you can provide to them. And the way that you look is a big part of that. That is a whole separate topic that I do not feel up for tackling in this video. At this point in my life, I have a fairly feminine presentation. I do buy most of my clothes from the women's section. I prefer keeping my hair around this length, so short, but not a stereotypically masculine haircut. I've also been realizing that I actually feel a lot of pressure to present in a more masculine way. You know, having a more feminine presentation often makes me feel like I'm not non-binary enough. But ultimately, I reject the idea that there is one way to be non-binary. That is totally not true. For me, at this point in my life, this is my most authentic self, the way that I am presenting in my day-to-day life. And I think it would be silly for me to dress in a way that wasn't authentic to me, or cut my hair in a way that wasn't authentic to me, just because other people would expect me to, having a non-binary identity. So I think going forward, I really, again, want to work on affirming myself and accepting myself, that I can be genderqueer and I can dress and present however I want, however is most authentic to me and feels right at the time. All right, so those parts were the easy parts. Now I'm gonna talk about something that I'm really nervous to address. It's one that includes me feeling misunderstood. I'm just gonna do my best. I'm just gonna try to speak from the heart. I have gotten some comments from people who I am assuming are cisgender women, accusing me of being misogynistic by identifying as non-binary or genderqueer. Before I read the comments, I want to give a content warning for transphobia. I will have a timestamp on the screen for anyone who would like to skip this part. The first comment I'm going to read is from 6 months ago, and it starts by quoting something that I said in my short where I announced using she, they pronouns. Sometimes I feel like a woman, but most of the time I just feel like a person. And the comment goes on to say, a woman is a person with a complex inner world and self-determination like anybody else. To reject womanhood because you feel like a person is so flagrantly offensive. A woman is not a stereotype and not a feeling. Womanhood is immutable and inescapable. The overturn of Roe v. Wade has made that abundantly clear on this day. I wish you well, but I hope the backwards religion that is gender ideology becomes clear to you. Why escape one oppressive ideology to dive headfirst into another? A woman can act and feel and think any way she wants, regardless of her biology. So, it's a long comment, but I picked this one specifically because I think it encapsulates a lot of the other ones that I've gotten, and a lot of just sort of the general beliefs and feelings of a particular group of cisgender women who feel this way. So I'd like to respond to some different parts of this comment. So I'll just start with the last sentence. A woman can act and feel and think any way she wants. I 100% agree with that. And I fully support women being exactly who they are, whatever that looks like. Now I'm going to go up to the top of the comment where this person quoted me, sometimes I feel like a woman, but most of the time I just feel like a person. So when I said that, I was still in the process of figuring out my gender and coming to terms with it, to be honest. I was struggling with a lot of internalized shame around not being cisgender, and I still struggle with that. And when I said, sometimes I feel like a woman, even then, it wasn't that often. Most of the time, I just felt like a person. And I want to explain further, because I know that that was just a short, and shorts are only 1 minute long. And honestly, I might move away from doing shorts because it seems like every time I do one, I leave out a lot of details and people get a little confused, which I totally understand. So to clarify, to make this really clear, when I said I just feel like a person, I in no way meant that women are not people. What I was expressing and trying to explain is that I just felt like a person. Emphasis on just. A genderless person, or a person without gender. A person outside of the gender binary. That has everything to do with me personally and my identity, and nothing to do with how I view a whole group of people and their humanity. Okay, this next part is rough. The comment says, to reject womanhood because you feel like a person is so flagrantly offensive. I do not believe that I am rejecting womanhood. I believe that I am just adding language to who I truly am. I don't have to falsely believe that I'm a woman in order to support women and to stand against misogyny, which I will talk a bit more about after I get through the rest of this comment. The next part says, a woman is not a stereotype and not a feeling. I agree that a woman is not a stereotype. Stereotypes are put onto women incorrectly. I fully support women standing against gender stereotypes, rejecting those, rejecting gender norms and gender roles. I think that we should all reject gender roles because they hurt everyone, is my very sincerely held belief. The second part of this sentence, a woman is not a feeling, I think what this commenter is trying to say, especially with the next sentence, the overturning of Roe v. Wade has made that abundantly clear. I think they're talking about sex and genitals and body parts. People of all genders can have a uterus and any other body parts. These comments are strange to me because I could be wrong, but many of them seem like they're coming from people who have watched my channel and enjoyed my videos and maybe have felt seen or validated by some of the experiences I've shared about growing up in Christian fundamentalism, specifically when it comes to gender, patriarchy, the gender roles that I was pushed into. I am still the same person. I just have more understanding of myself and more courage to share that. Honestly, I love women. I feel a very strong kinship with cisgender women specifically because of the experiences that I share with them. I wish that we could have solidarity with each other, and I wish that we could support each other. It hurts to get comments like this because it just feels like a rejection. So I think that's all I really want to say about that comment, but I do think that I have plenty of misogyny to continue to address. The world that I grew up in was and is extremely misogynistic. And so, of course, those messages are very ingrained in me. And I just want to hopefully reassure everyone watching that I know that, and I am fully committed to confronting that and to unlearning those messages. And I don't think that I have to be a woman in order to do that. The next thing I'd like to talk about is being perceived as a woman, because I am perceived as a woman, even though that's not my gender identity. There's this great video that I saw recently on Elena Joy's channel, one of my favorite YouTubers. She had Kira Graves on her channel. The video is called Signs You Might Be Non-Binary. I definitely recommend watching the whole video, and I will put a link to that down below. But I also would like to put a clip of Kira talking about something that I really resonate with.
I definitely associate with non-binary, I associate with gender fluid, but I also really associate with being a person with female experience. Being like a female identifying human.
Yeah.
Because I really, really identify with being a female, but not a woman.
Are you saying because you've grown up socialized as female, you like other people's putting of gender roles onto you has shaped who you are?
Yes, and how society just treats me when they look at me as female. It's shaped who I am a lot, and it's also been the subject of a lot of trauma too. So I identify with being female.
You're like, this is an important part of my identity. This is an important part of who I am, but it's not my gender.
Yeah, and not everyone will understand what I'm saying, because every time I try to explain my gender, people are like, you're contradicting yourself, you're so confusing, you make no sense, but it's like, it's fine if it makes no sense to you.
Like, it does make sense. I think it really does, because you're saying my gender identity is no gender, like gender's not a thing, but I also don't want to erase, forget, not acknowledge, stop living the experience of other folks identifying you as female in this world. Like, that has consequences, that has shaped your lived experience.
Well explained, Elena. It sounds validating to hear you explain it in a way that makes sense to you.
I love the way that Kira explains how their experiences are a big part of who they are. I feel the same way. So much of my life has been marked, impacted, influenced by being assigned female at birth and the way that my parents and the other adults and leaders in my cult/community of Christian homeschoolers responded to that, the way that they raised me. Being raised as a girl, specifically a Christian girl, has been a ginormous part of my life. And all of those experiences are a part of me. They're important to me, and they impacted me so much. And I can't just let those go and pretend that they never happened. But when I am called a woman or other gendered language is used to describe me, lady, miss, ma'am, etc., it causes me gender dysphoria. You know, it feels really bad and really wrong. There's actually a comment that I got that I'd like to highlight because I really relate to it and I really appreciate it. The comment says, "The real eye-opener is talking to your friends that are cis women and learning they aren't just dealing with being a woman, and being female isn't just something I can live with, I guess, ugh." And I relate to that comment 100%. That is a beautiful way to put it. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about is positionality. And this has to do with power and privilege within the cis heteropatriarchy. And to define that term really quick, I should actually look it up. Hold on. Okay, cis heteropatriarchy, the system of power that centers cisgender heterosexual men and masculinity at the top of the gender/sexual hierarchy. And of course, cis heteropatriarchy is closely and deeply linked to white supremacy. So I want to share part of a TikTok that I came across this last summer. And I actually have been realizing lately that I'm a little addicted to TikTok. So I would like to watch less TikTok in 2023. But I've learned a lot from creators that I follow on that app. And one of the creators that I've learned a lot from is Mooney Maroon. He uses he, him pronouns. I'm gonna share part of one of his videos and I will put a link below to the video so that you can watch the whole thing if you'd like. But this particular part of the video explains the term positionality. When I came across this video and I was listening to that part of it, a bunch of things that I had been thinking about, kind of formulating in my mind based on things that I was learning, all clicked into place. And it just resonated so much and it made so much sense to me. And before I play the video, a content warning for racism, and I will put, again, a timestamp on the screen for anyone who would like to skip this whole part of the discussion.
I want to take a moment to acknowledge the difference between positionality and identity. Positionality has to do with how people in power perceive you and therefore what powers you receive. Identity has to do with how you internally see yourself. White womanhood is a positionality. It has to do with how you're perceived under the cis heteropatriarchy and therefore what powers you are granted. One of the most notable such powers, which you have likely noticed in the past couple of years, is the power to use your tears and distress to get people of color murdered. What a heavy thing. This power does not depend on your gender. It depends entirely on your positionality. Similarly, all other aspects of white womanhood, the positionality, do not depend on your internal gender. As you are likely well aware that all the oppressions of white womanhood also do not depend on your internal gender. White womanhood is not a gender. Just like every other racialized gendering that white supremacy does, Mammy is also not a gender. Neither is Jezebel, nor is thug, nor is criminal.
I want to continue to deconstruct and unlearn the messages of the ideology of white womanhood. Specifically, in my case, the ideology of white Christian womanhood. So I think that about covers everything that I wanted to address, to talk about. Like I said, I have a lot of ideas for different videos that I would like to do on my channel. I will say that these days, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time or energy, to be honest, to make videos. So I think they're going to come less frequently than they have in the past. But if you're interested in seeing more videos from me, please rest assured that I will be making more. There just might be bigger gaps in between. In the meantime, feel free to follow me on Instagram at Ex-Fundie Diaries. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope your 2023 is going well so far. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.